From WisPolitics in Madison, you're listening to Capital Chats.
Welcome to Capital Chats, brought to you by Spectrum. I'm Audrey Thiebert, and today I'm in the office with my colleague Kate Morton, talking with her about an interview she did with Susan Webb-Yackee, the director of the Follette School of Public Affairs. Kate, what'd you guys talk about?
Yeah, thanks, Audrey. So we just talked a little bit about their Main Street Agenda program. It's a partnership with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel to kind of promote civil dialogue, and part of it is having these community conversations about different topics that are important to Wisconsinites.
Great, let's get into the interview.
All right, Professor Yackee, well, thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
So to get us started, maybe we can talk a little bit about the Main Street Agenda program. It's a partnership between the Follette School of Public Affairs and the Journal-Sentinel. So maybe you could say more about that and the goals of the project.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So it is a partnership between the Follette School of Public Affairs at UW-Madison and the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. And our goal behind this sort of actually a year of activity is to be placing more emphasis in advance of the 2024 election on the issues that matter to Wisconsinites. And we're trying to do that in a bunch of different ways. So let me describe kind of three ways that we're doing that. First, we've launched about a monthly series with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel where we're placing op-eds, oftentimes from Follette School faculty members in their paper, about policy issues that a representative survey of Wisconsinites have identified as important to them. And the scholars then kind of use that as a jumping off point to talk about the research in the particular area. Maybe it's on gun safety and domestic violence one month, and the opioid crisis and healthcare and the next month. So those have been running all year, been super successful, wonderful partnership. And then second, in advance of the election, we're holding two different town halls in collaboration with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. One was in La Crosse, and that was on September 11th. That featured a couple of our Follette School faculty members and really honed in on issues of healthcare and kind of sustainability in the climate. And then we'll have another one of those coming up in Milwaukee on October 15th. For anybody that wants to attend, that's going to be on October 15th at the Clinton Rose Senior Center. And that particular town hall is going to focus on inflation and the economy. And that's going to feature a couple of our Follette faculty members talking about those issues and kind of contextualizing what we know about those issues, as well as some community members from the Milwaukee area and talking about their experiences with inflation and the economy in advance of the election. So super, super excited about those. And then last, I'll mention we're holding 4 community conversations across the state as well. And I'm happy to talk more about those, but the focus there is to get people talking to each other, and in particular, talking red state Wisconsinites and blue state Wisconsinites sitting down around a table, having dinner, and chatting with each other about the issues that matter.
Yeah, I'm curious to ask more about those community conversations. You know, we obviously live in a really polarized time. So how have those conversations gone? What have been like some of the big topics that they've been discussing?
Yeah, they have been really remarkable. And I mean, actually has, gives you a lot of faith in humanity. These were really dreamed up between the Follette School and Milwaukee Journal Sentinel 2 years ago, where we wanted to do it. And we wanted to do these conversations in advance of the 2022 elections. And we just didn't have the time and bandwidth. And so these are a long time coming, and a lot of time and effort have gone into them being kind of showcased and done right. So we're holding 4 of them. We're through 3. So we were in Milwaukee on September 18th, Green Bay on September 25th, Eau Claire last week on October 2nd, and this week we'll be in Madison on October 9th. And the event sizes have ranged, but over all 4 of those events, we'll expect between 350 and 400 Wisconsinites will have come to one of these events, sat down, broke bread, and had dinner and conversation together. So what have they been talking about? There's a script that we have each of these conversations, picture it, that it's about 7 or 8 Wisconsinites. Each table has some degree of partisan difference. Like, we know that there's partisan difference across that table. and then one trained nonpartisan facilitator that's at that table as well. And the nonpartisan facilitator is a Follette School faculty member, student, staff member, kind of affiliated with the Follette School. And their job is really to keep the conversation going, to make sure that things don't escalate or that there isn't some kind of personal attacks that might be taking place at the table. And we haven't had that, and we hope we don't. But we wanted to make sure that we were ready for whatever might come our way. And so that trained facilitator kicks things off by asking a few questions about everybody's shared experience as a Wisconsinite. And there's a variety of other questions about, in particular, K through 12 education, which has come up a lot at these events, as well as opportunities for other issues that the attendees want to talk about. So that surprisingly to me, fills the time readily. We have just had so much participation and interest and excitement, and a lot of folks leaving the events really optimistic and more positive, and a lot of folks saying they weren't sure what to expect, but it exceeded their expectations, and some hugs, high fives. I mean, just really wonderful outpouring of people that want to talk about the issues, and they want to do it in a civil way where there's not yelling and there's not bombast. Mhm.
Yeah, have you witnessed any like really interesting conversations or maybe anecdotally heard about any exchanges that kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, one stands out for me, and that is this just wonderful woman who, at the end of the dinner and conversation event, so, about an hour and 45 minutes in or so, we ask people to kind of pause and take some reflection, each at their tables to say, what has this event meant? What did you expect out of the event? And also, what do you sort of want going forward in terms of kind of Wisconsin and public policy? And this one woman shared this amazing story, which I thought it was amazing. So she says, again, this is at the end of the event. And she says, listen, I came here today. I've got my keys in my pocket. I didn't bring a jacket. I didn't bring my phone. I didn't bring anything with me because I thought if this goes south, I'm leaving. Right. She was going to run out of there. She's going to say, I got to go to the bathroom and I'm out. Right. And she said, the opposite has happened. Right. The opposite has happened. She shared how she had thoroughly enjoyed herself, how some topics were raised and points were made and opinions shared that she didn't agree with, but she was happier knowing other people's point of view and having that other person kind of humanized and like a face to those other views, as opposed to somebody that sort of you automatically demonize. And so that woman's story has really stuck with me, and how much she got out of it and how low her expectations were, kind of given where we're at as a society today.
Yeah, I'm curious, is this something you see doing again in the future?
Well, I hope we will. So, these four events, these community conversation events, again, tremendous amount of work and staff time and coordination. So I'm so grateful to my colleagues, both at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel as well as at the LaFollette School. Lots of faculty time, students time, volunteering as these nonpartisan facilitators. So really, really wonderful events, but a lot of costs attached to them. You
Yeah.
know, one of the things that we hope to do as we consider these outreach and research events. So we're, as faculty researchers, we're also hoping to glean some best practices from these events so that other nonpartisan organizations, when they want to hold community dinner conversations and talk about the issues that matter to their community members, that we'll have some kind of white paper on the best practices that we learned from our experience. So that we hope to do something like this again, but we also know that we want to touch more lives, and we want to have other events like this held in other communities that we weren't able to get to this year.
Yeah, I'm wondering, it sounds like these events have been very civil and well kind of organized, but I guess what do you attribute kind of the polarization that we face in our country to? I'm sure it's probably several factors, but
You're right. Yeah. So political scientists have been studying this for some time now, and it's a really important area of study. Some of the factors that research has pointed to are our quite polarized media environment where, we're kind of able to almost live in our own information bubbles, if you will, where folks that voted for Trump in the 2020 election can't just like they can't imagine President Biden having won because they don't know anybody that voted for him. And similarly, folks that voted for Biden can't imagine that President Trump would be, have come so close in the election because they similarly don't know. So I think that those media markets, but it's not just that. It's also that we are more sorted and segregated than we ever have been. So our neighborhoods are more sorted by partisanship than we ever have been. Certainly our state, which used to be very purple, now has big pockets of red and kind of concentrated pockets of blue, where that used to be, not so clear.
Sure.
And because in the past, because of that, there was less sorting. We naturally ran into people who held different partisan views. And because through that process, at church, at our, community organizations, at work, we naturally humanized people that were of a different political persuasion. We thought, well, John Doe doesn't agree with me, but I like John Doe and I trust John Doe. And so, what he's saying, it must not be that bad, even though, I'm going to vote differently than him, but it's not that bad. And, because of this sorting, again, neighborhood works, really regional sorting as well as media markets, we have come to a time where we just don't interact with people of different political persuasions as much as we used to. And that's actually one of the reasons why events like this, dinner and conversation events, which place a premium on humanizing people across the political aisle, are so important because they put a name and a face with those political views in ways that we don't run into as much as we used to.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your perspective on this. Is there anything else you want to add that you think people should know about this program?
Well, I think I would add that, we're right to worry about polarization. And, one of the reasons why the Follette School, which is a school of public policy, one of the best public policy schools in the world, one might ask, why is the La Follette School active and engaged in this space, right? So, and there's a couple of reasons. One is we want to talk about public policy issues in advance of the election, especially the issues that Wisconsinites are identifying as important, and especially ones that candidates aren't talking about much. So that's one issue. But another is that, we're a school that's very much dedicated to bring evidence to the policymaking process, to kind of identifying those problems, but also coming up with solutions to problems. And it's just frankly getting harder and harder to get to compromise, solutions are almost always compromises, right? Solutions, especially to important thorny problems, are almost always compromises. And it's getting harder to get to solutions when we don't have some, understanding and ways to mitigate polarization, both at the citizen level, but also at, which our elected representatives are simply, representatives of those citizens, right? So if our citizens demand kind of that compromise and that lessening of polarization, the hope is that we'll be better able to live our mission of evidence-based policymaking and live that vision for Wisconsin and the broader United States.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
That was Kate Morton with Susan Webb-Yackee, the director of the La Follette School of Public Affairs. For more about state politics, you can head to our website at wispolitics.com. Kate, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Audrey.
That's Capital Chats, brought to you by Spectrum.